Hello, we are filming at Bright Event Productions. Welcome to the Nashville Fashion Week digital experience. I'm Connie Cathcart Richardson, and this is my partner, Marcia Masula. We are co-founders and managing partners of Nashville Fashion Week and the Nashville Fashion Forward Fund of the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. This week looks much different than we had originally planned for April. Despite a tornado, a global pandemic, social injustice, and many other obstacles, we have put together 5 days of free digital programming to celebrate all things Nashville fashion from the comfort and safety of our own homes. It is our pleasure to present fashion talks, 3 learning labs, 19 local designers, and daily Shop Nashville retail events and promotions. These were designed to impact, engage, and encourage our local fashion community. We want you to get to know and support the people, brands, and businesses that are Nashville fashion.
Nashville Fashion Week was conceived in 2010 to foster Nashville's heralded community spirit and concentration of creative, fashion-forward, and entrepreneurial talent. We have grown tremendously since then, and in our 10th year, we took the necessary steps to continue safely supporting the fashion community during a time when they need it the most. While our funding is completely based on sponsorships and ticket sales for our live events, we too felt the heavy losses of the challenging circumstances that we are all experiencing right now. The Nashville Fashion Forward Fund of the Community Professionals with Ties is an endowed fund that supports the next generation of fashion industry professionals with ties to Middle Tennessee. This fund provides an annual financial award and resources for experiential professional development opportunities. Normally, 100% of the proceeds from Nashville Fashion Week benefits the fund for a single award. We were able to make an exception due to extenuating circumstances and issued $500 grants to all 19 participating 2020 designers. We recognize the significance in offering encouragement and financial assistance to help them transition during this time. We also have made all of our digital programming free and donated over 1,000 masks to Mass Now Tennessee, thanks to the pre-sales of our We Are Nashville t-shirts and our sponsors, On Point Manufacturing. We encourage you to continue to celebrate and support our fashion community this week and for the upcoming months of uncertainty. And if you're able and capable, we hope that you also consider making a donation to our Nashville Fashion Forward Fund at NashvilleFashionWeek.com. Stay safe, and we hope to see you in person for Nashville Fashion Week 2021.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 1 of Nashville Fashion Week. We made it. As you know, when you registered, each time that you register and attend one of our fashion talks or learning labs, you are entered to win 2 all-access passes for our 2021 Nashville Fashion Week, and these are valued at $800. So definitely continue to join us, spread the word, and we hope to celebrate with you. Please also go to Nashville Fashion Week for all the details, or follow us on Instagram at NashFashWeek by using the hashtag YNFW. We have a packed week beginning today. About a year ago, when we first breached the topic of diversity and inclusion, we knew that it was something that was very meaningful, not only to the fashion industry and the world, but to our own city here in Nashville. We are so thankful that we were able to schedule this ahead of time and actually bring it to you today when we need to have that conversation more than ever. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our dear friend who was supposed to receive in person the Fern Mallis, the first ever Fern Mallis Mentorship Award in Nashville. You might know her as an industry titan and also the award-winning creator of New York Fashion Week. And Fern, before I hand it over, I have to brag a little bit more. I don't know if any of you have been able to attend in person or view anything online that is programming right now, but she's been hosting a series called Fashion Icons with Fern Mallis at the legendary 92Y in New York. And some of her interviews have included, you know, Oscar, Valentino, Andre, Calvin, you might know them. So be sure to check that out online if you can and continue to support her and the stories of fashion in the future when you're able to attend. You can also pick up her book, Fashion Lives with Fashion Icons by Fern Mallis as well. I know I have 2 or 3 copies laying around here myself. And we are so thankful, Fern, to have you be part of our Nashville Fashion Week family, a friend since 2014. I'll go ahead and let you introduce the panelists.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. and thank you everyone for joining in today on this virtual Nashville Fashion Week. I really was looking forward to being in Nashville right now to celebrate the 10th anniversary, but here I am in New York at my home in the Hamptons while a hurricane is passing by and hitting us just as this talk is happening. So I apologize. And that's what's happening today. It's going to rain and pour. But here we are zooming into Nashville. Congratulations, Marsha and Connie, for everything you've done and for keeping this week flourishing and alive and doing what you're doing to help all the designers and the fashion community in Nashville. No global pandemic can stop you ladies. Never stop you. Also, I was very happy to learn last week while I was watching all the very touching and moving ceremonies about John Lewis's funeral that he had lived in Nashville and spent a significant amount of time there, and I never knew that. So that even made me love Nashville more. So it is a great city. But now let me introduce our terrific panel. I know 3 of them very well, and I look forward to meeting the other 2 Nashville guests sometime on my next trip to Nashville in person. So let's say hello first to Tanya Taylor, right in the middle of my screen. I don't know where she is on everybody else's screen. Tanya started her namesake label in 2012 with the mission to inspire all women to live a more colorful life. Tanya uses color, texture, and original hand-painted prints. Her collections are sold in all the best retailers, Saks, Bergdorf's, Neiman's, Nordstrom's, if those stores are still existing. And her clothes have been worn by a diverse range of inspirational women, such as former First Lady Michelle Obama, Tracee Ellis Ross, Awkwafina, Jennifer Garner, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Adie Bryant. Tanya Taylor is also an inclusive brand and is proud to offer styles in sizes from 0 to 22. Bravo, that is so important. And most importantly, congratulations, because Tanya just had a baby boy. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
5 weeks ago.
5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name's Sawyer.
Sawyer. Oh, wonderful
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
All right, well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Timo. Timo Wheland is a good pal and an award-winning creative director and serial entrepreneur. And when time permits, he's also a DJ, which I guess all designers now have become DJs also. I don't know when that became a secondary career. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, raised in Florida, New York, graduated from Vanderbilt in Nashville. So he considers himself a local, I think, at sometimes. He worked as an investment banking analyst at Deutsche Bank Securities, covered media and technology before launching his first startup. Since 2010, Timo has successfully built a namesake lifestyle fashion brand. It's very cool, as well as businesses across food and beverage, media, B2B intelligence, real estate, technology, and venture capital. He sounds like a real mogul. Okay, next we have Peter Somm. Peter is born in San Francisco, launched his first collection in 2000. His signature clean lines and feminine designs have also been worn by Michelle Obama, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Beyonce, Scarlett Johansson, and others. Also sold at the top retailers, including Saks, Neiman's, and Nordstrom's. He's also had very successful collaborations with Tommy Hilfiger, Kohl's, and Anthropologie, and he's designed furniture and tabletop collections. With the inside, Peter also loves entertaining and food, don't we all? His recipes have been featured in numerous publications, digital platforms, including Vogue.com, Elle.com, Bon Appetit, Refinery 29, Food and Wine, and Feed. I'm getting hungry just reading that. Kimberly Lewis. Kimberly owns the Nashville women's boutique Emerson Grace. She was born and raised in Hawaii, which is kind of wonderful. Started her fashion career in Southern California and built an impressive resume as an executive in the fashion industry. She worked in both retail and wholesale for top companies, including Ralph Lauren and BCBG Max Azria. Max was a dear friend, and I really loved that man. For Max Azria, she launched the company's initial retail efforts, growing the chain from 0 to 100 stores. Her expertly curated selection of merchandise at Emerson Grace encourages women to dress with style and ease for every occasion. She created an elevated casual aesthetic, and she understands what women want to wear and offers a well-edited mix of brands and price points. Kimberly lives in Nashville with her husband and her daughter. And last, definitely not least, we have the Chanel ready-to-wear ambassador at Nordstrom Green Hills, Barry Grider. Barry has grown his career in luxury through decades of service to his hometown of Nashville. He's often recognized for his exceptional selling abilities and service provided to his clients, and the deep relationships he's created over a lifetime. Barry has experienced incredible opportunities with Nordstrom and the Chanel brand, including buying trips to Paris, exclusive visits to the Chanel archives, I wish I was with you on that one, and the Métiers d'Art, and most recently opening Nordstrom's New York flagship store, which is a great store, and I hope it stays and pulls it together and survives this craziness. Okay, so questions for all of you before we get into diversity and inclusivity quickly. Let's talk COVID for a minute. How have you all been handling this crazy world we're living in now, personally and professionally? Are you all working out of your homes? Let's start with Peter, start with you.
I've been, it's been definitely crazy. I think like everyone, it's been a crazy adjustment. I've been, for the most part, on Sag Harbor, and then after a few months, I started kind of coming back for a few days to the city. So it's, it's really a matter, I think it was a matter of adjusting at things in a totally new way of how to get work done and how to work with people, and obviously spending a lot more time on Zoom calls. So, day by day,
And have you changed things dramatically in your head, lessons learned from this, things to do differently?
I think the thing that I really have sort of taken away from it, even though we're still kind of in it, is to take the blinders off of how business gets done or how meetings happen, how everything happens. It's really still surreal to me. I mean, that we're in this and that this is our new reality. But I think the thing is, it's sort of like during these times is when you get more creative, you blinders come off and you think more outside of the box, because I think that's the time when we need creativity the most, whether it's the actual creativity of the product you're doing or how you think about doing it. So yeah, it's been an experience.
And Tanya?
Same. So I came to Toronto in March for a weekend, and the borders closed. So I've been here since March, unexpectedly, and had our son here. And I think work from home has been something that's never really felt natural to the fashion industry, because you're so tactile and you need to touch things and drape things and, look at fabrics with your team. And I've been so amazed at how much we've been able to accomplish from working from home and just having to figure out how to digitally connect with each other. We've tried to keep a lot of the same things going in the company, where we have Monday morning meetings, we have a games night every week for the team so that we feel like physically connected. And I think that, yeah, it's definitely given me more courage to challenge the way that we do things. And to your point, Peter, you feel like, because it's almost like starting from zero, or there's like a blank slate and you can recreate what you want to do now that there's been such a change in the industry. I think that a lot of creativity can come from that.
I'm thankful that we are reopened. Thankful to be back in the store. I truly missed people.
Yeah.
I'm free. I keep freezing, so I'm sorry about that. Barry, what were you saying?
Glad to be reopened and back in the store. Very thankful to be back in the store. I truly miss the people connection on, on top of the beautiful clothes and the craftsmanship that I get to be around on a daily basis. Fortunately, while we were closed, we had an option to sell through style boards for those customers that did want to shop. So, the 10 years ago, this technology wouldn't have even existed. So it's great to have the technological tools that do exist now. You couldn't even take good photos on your mobile 10 years ago. So looking to the positive and thankful for those tools that did exist for those that did want to shop. And we did offer curbside pickup. While we did have to be closed, you were able to purchase and pick up at curbside.
What season is in Nordstrom's now?
Well, actually, this is the first day of anniversary sale for our icon shoppers. So anniversary sale usually we would be close to the tail end of it by now. But this is the first day, so it's happening now in August. And primarily what's coming in now, so there's kind of a mix of things happening right now. We have pre-fall delivering that normally would have delivered in May and June that has been in the last couple of weeks trickling in. We have finale going on. So we have the spring and summer collections that are clearing out. And at this particular location, we're like at 60% off, and we're going to give you an additional 25% off when out. So there's just a handful of our Nordstrom stores that are able to offer that right now. So it's kind of a trifecta of things going on that usually would happen one at a time.
Good time to go shopping. Get some good buys now, boy.
Something for everyone. There is.
All right, Timo, what about you? What are you going to do for your collection? And is there something September showing, something digital? What do you...
So we've been, very much embracing this new normal, which is, Zoom calls, socially distant strolls. Luckily, a lot of my team and I, my co-founders, Alan and Donna, we live very close to each other. So we're able to, be masked if we, just want to be in the same, space. But we have become very used to Zoom and FaceTime for September. I'm very excited to share that we're doing a virtual, we're basically doing a virtual showing of the new collection at my co-founder and business partner, Alan Eckstein's new store. So he has a store right next to my apartment in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And it's 25,000 square feet, warehouse. It's, he collects art and antiques and, really goes around the world to estate sales and to, he also refurbishes a lot of things himself. Like Alan is a genius. I've always been in awe of him, and to share an office and a desk with him and Donna has just been highlight of my life, really. And so 11 years in, here we are doing a show in such a different format that'll be video, virtual, during the time frame of September 12th and 14th. It'll be in his store, which has a glass garage door on the front of it, and we'll have all of the models and everyone socially distant, and we'll likely have one editor at a time. And we'll be shooting it, and that's what we're going to be doing. So
we'll look forward to checking in on that.
Yeah, I would love for you to be there. Maybe we'll have you come in before, because it's going to be
to be discussed. To be discussed. All right, Kimberly, and how's your store doing? Are you doing business? You selling a lot of masks?
Originally I said I was not going to sell masks, that I was I was not going to be a part of this pandemic problem. And I was a little bit more of optimistic and thinking that I didn't want to have all these masks that I would end up having to mark down. Well, now I sell masks. So I think as everyone here, we're all, when you're in this industry, we're all planners and we all have calendars and schedules, and that has gone completely out the window, and it has come to one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. We just do what we can do. I feel fortunate that our store opened in May and we're still open, and we have limited hours. So we're closed on Sundays, which I never thought, based on our location, that would ever be something that we would do. But we are, and I feel very fortunate that I think my team has been amazing. The growth and the connectedness and the togetherness that's happened because of this. Everybody's working much harder, much stronger. They're much more dedicated and loyal. I think being closed and working together during this just created a bonding experience, less individual, more team, more big picture. I think everyone felt very thankful that they were all able to keep their jobs. And I feel very blessed that I was able to provide that for them. You know, because as we all know, we can all sit here as leaders, but it takes a village. You know, there's a lot of people that do a majority of the work for us. So I'm very, very thankful for my talented and really dynamic team and the customers. I mean, Instagram just, I mean, killed it for us. We really just skyrocketed the behind the scenes piece, the way we had to shift and think about how we were going to sell while we were closed really made me think out of the box. I feel fortunate that I've been in the business so long, because the older you are, the more things you've experienced, I think, in the world and having to shift and pivot. So I really just took this stance.
Those are the words, shift and pivot.
Shift and pivot. I mean,
so we need to shift and pivot to the subject of today's talk, which is diversity and inclusivity, which was set before all of the world exploded. So we were right on target, and since we've used up half of our time chit-chatting about all this other important stuff, let's get into it. I just want to ask you all, like, what was your initial reaction when George Floyd was hideously murdered and the hashtag Black Lives moment immediately took center stage and gained long overdue traction worldwide? Did each of you have to take a pause and change the way you worked, or how you do your business, or who you hire and who you work with? I mean, what did you personally say, okay, this just happened, this is what I have to do now, this is how I need to make a change and difference? And if you could each do it as kind of quickly as we could say that, even though it's so important, because we really have like 20 some odd minutes left, and we know we all have a lot to say. So I'm gonna start with the way you are on my screen, because it's easier for me that way. But Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I think like everyone, just the complete shock of seeing that video, and I'm gonna obviously, like you said, just condense my thoughts, but you know, and I think, you know, the fact that this has been happening for a long time, but now again, to Barry's point, technology has helped capture these horrifying moments, and to see this on screen, I think in sort of combination with everyone being in quarantine, I think there was this sort of big bang kind of moment of the energy and the anger and the frustration and the heartbreak and the action kind of all came together.
So what did you decide that you have to do differently?
Well, I think it's understanding that diversity happens at every level. It's not just the consumer facing side where like, okay, we're gonna have more models of color. Or it has to really happen at every level. If we're kind of talking about like in companies, like, you know, it has to happen from the beginning, and like from the management side, from every side, there has to be conversations that have to be had. Whether they're uncomfortable, which they probably should be, and I think that is really, it's about the dialogue, but it's also about what the action is, and I think that's, you know, the action is what we're seeing now. So
okay, Tanya, then you and your company.
Yeah, so the day of the George Floyd death, I definitely felt personally responsible to just email the team and start a dialogue around what organizations we could all support, who we could text, call, to make, you know, a difference. And I think I've always seen the company as a reflection of my own values, and whether it's political, whether it's social, I haven't felt I've always been very kind of honest and open with my team about where I stand on things, and then wanting to kind of activate what their thoughts are. So over the next week, we had a lot of conversations with everyone. We're 20 people on the team, and we started writing down who are all the people we hire in a year. And whether it's photographers, graphic designers, tech designers, and we put together a list of 55 people. And we said to ourselves, like, we could make a bigger impact in hiring practices that promote diversity, even though we feel like we're small. And knowing that it starts from the very beginning, and the fashion industry is kind of built to not have opportunity for a lot of people that we want to support. And thinking of like, who are we using for recruiters? We've put together a diversity committee in the company. We've put together 5 committees, actually, kind of changed our entire structure. So now we have a group of people that are really focused on size inclusivity, a group of people that are focused on diversity, on philanthropy, on sustainability. And I'm not part of it. And I think that that's the best part, is that it's really the team that's bringing the ideas that they see in the industry and the way that they want the company to reflect what they want to change in the industry. And then it comes to me and I can support it. And I think it's so far worked really well.
Timo?
So, yeah, I think we've embraced, since the George Floyd death, May 25th, that weekend, a very similar response to Tanya. So just, I think I'd like to talk about what we're doing at Zenni. So I work closely with Zenni, and we have always had the motto, I wear for everyone. And this, the renewed focus on Black Lives Matter, Black trans lives matter. We've had the motto, I wear for everyone. And so as a leader of the company, and we do Timo's Zenni, so we work closely as a brand with them, I wanted to make sure that that was an authentic motto, that was something that, was pervasive through the company. We have 1,700 employees. We also have numerous campaigns throughout the year, sell around 30,000 pairs of eyewear per day on the website. So it's definitely a business that can make an impact through philanthropic. So we've supported several different organizations around the ACLU, several different initiatives that are Black Trans Lives Matter, benefiting in Black Lives Matter. And we also have one collection launching around back to school that I'm really excited about. We've been working on it for 1.5 years. And it's with 2 beautiful twin sisters that are now, they're Black twin sisters by the names of Coco and Breezy. So we have a Coco and Breezy collaboration collection launching for back to school, geared towards preteens, teenagers, and really the message around it is so beautiful. It brings tears to my eyes. They just are so, it's a really powerful message that they've always put out into the world and what they've created. And the name of the brand is Planet CB. It'll be available on Zenni.com. So please be on the lookout for that, because
will you send that information to everybody, and we can share that, and Marsha can get it out to everybody also?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Kimberly, what about you? I mean, and how has your experience been as a Black woman in the fashion industry? Did you ever felt that you were denied opportunities and couldn't fulfill dreams you had?
I feel that one of the things that comes to mind most important, I feel very fortunate that I did have a lot of opportunities, but I think I'm also living in my own bubble of what I may have thought were great opportunities, and maybe there were more to be had that maybe I wasn't really aware of or privy to. We kind of stay in our own world and what we think is great. Maybe there was even greater things out there. But one of the things from owning a store and being on the buying end and going to trade shows and going to showrooms, I am typically the only African-American person in the showroom who's buying, who potentially owns a store. And the better the brand, the less of me I see. So I think that's a big part of the struggle, that having additional retailers out there that can help to support, and then also finding great brands that are from people of color. They're really, really not represented in the bigger environments, in the better showrooms. Even if you go to something as mass as Coterie, it's really very few and far between.
But have you been able to identify more Black designers now since this movement happened? Because I know in the trade papers, there's tons of press now to finding people I never heard of in my life.
Right.
So many terrific, talented people that I never even knew about.
I think that's the beautiful thing about what's happened with all of this for the fashion industry, is I believe that everyone, the bigger they are, everyone felt the responsibility to shift and to change, and then to highlight all of the people that they realized that maybe they weren't recognizing, and that everybody was putting out great, talented people at all different, and designers and brands at all different price points, between skin, healthcare, beauty, fashion, everywhere. And I think in many ways it flooded the internet and flooded social media, that it allowed everyone to have access and to see different people with different price points and different levels of creativity. But those people now have a voice and get seen, and hopefully their products are going to be shown and highlighted. We personally are picked up in the last just couple of weeks, like 3 or 4 new brands. And, it's hard to add new brands to your mix when you're in a pandemic. You're kind of staying tried and true. You're trying to keep your business alive. But we made it a point. I made it a point with the team. Everybody is searching and looking for what works best for our business and how we can support others. Because I feel like I've been supported, and that's something that I have to do.
And Barry, what's your experience been working in this field as a Black man?
I've been very fortunate. I haven't come up with a lot of friction. I have had some incidents where I've looked back and I've wondered, did that happen because of the color of my skin, or let me try to figure this out. But in hindsight, I've looked back and wondered, that may have been what that was. But I've had great managers, I've had great support, and I do, as Kimberly, I do notice when I'm in some settings, if I'm the only person of color in the room, or one of just 2 or 3, that is something you may not notice right away, but once you're settled into the setting, why aren't there more of us here? So those questions do present themselves.
And how can you get more of them there? What can you do about that?
Well, you're asking yourself, does it have to do with, is this not someone's passion? Is it the lack of experience? Like, what aren't they getting? What avenues are needed to be open to get more here?
Tanya, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Barry. And I feel like it's access. Like for us, we, have really looked at, do we feel like there is access, being a New York brand, to offer, kind of the opportunity to a lot of kids maybe that are looking at what are the careers in fashion that could be interesting. And one organization, Fashion for All Foundation, that I think does an amazing job, has actually been kind of presented an opportunity during COVID, because they can offer virtual internships for a lot of kids that maybe can't come to New York. So we're working with them. And I think it's just important to realize that if you don't have parents, or you don't come from a community that necessarily sees fashion as an opportunity for a career, that it's our responsibility to really show what are all the different jobs and how we can kind of be more welcoming as an industry.
So a lot of it goes back to the education and in the schools, and really working at those grassroots levels to meet these students and encourage them and give them, the opportunities.
I think so, yeah.
What else do you all think needs to be done? What's the most pressing thing that you need to do and can be done right now, instead of, just talking and listening and talking and listening. You know, what's the action plan?
I think Nordstrom has done a great job taking action. Going back to even 2019, they've had some what they call employee resource groups that want to foster an inclusive culture throughout the company. This started out in Seattle, and I'm hoping to see that grow company-wide. But this happened even prior to that. So with the George Floyd incident, you know, we had a pandemic going on, and then people letting everyone know how they felt about how horrific this was. To our weekly COVID calls, we hear from a Nordstrom member every week. There were also talks taking place on that situation and inclusivity, diversity, and so forth. So bravo to our leaders for adding that in addition to the weekly updates on COVID with it and how to the company, what was happening with the company.
Yeah, there are a few distractions happening in the world right now with these issues being important. Everybody's still trying to just kind of stay alive, figuring out what to do with their families and their children and going back to schools. You know, I've been saying that we're all living in a very bad science fiction movie that has a terrible director, and he hasn't figured out how the movie's going to end. And so we're still living in this terrible movie. So hopefully we'll get some resolution on that in November, even though that's not the point of this call. But vote can change a lot of things. And I think even the whole BLM movement, I mean, all of that, all the inclusivity, diversity, it starts from the very top. And I think that that's a message that has to carry through at every level of our lives in society. You know, the fashion industry is just one of those industries that's very visible and very representative, you know, between the models and the hair and makeup people, the photographers, and slowly but surely, I feel like there's changes happening. People are being much more conscious and much more aware. You know, what is something that each of you would like to see happen next? I mean, anything that you'd say, this will make the difference, this will do it for me? I mean, even though it's an ongoing discussion.
I'll start with that. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to say something I'm really excited to see is that mandates across venture capital for a lot of these new startups that are in fashion, beauty, lifestyle, to support, seed, and grow underrepresented companies founded by underrepresented founding teams. So female founders, people of color, and I love supporting that. Every venture capital investment that I'm a part of, have to also plug my friend Ida Epkudam, who is of Gingerbread Capital, and she herself is a force of nature, woman of color, investor. And she would walk into rooms over the last 2 decades or more and be the only person of color, investor, founder, leader of a company. And that has changed dramatically in the last 2 years, but it's about to change a lot more because of people like her and because of, you know, opportunities that are now an emphasis rather than an afterthought. And the interest is, you know, it's something that's a big passion of mine. And I think a lot of the education, I was educated from her, so.
Great. Well, we need more of her. Yes, Kimberly?
I'd like to say that I think the one thing that I think about is support. I feel like supporting the smaller businesses and the industry and the people of color, and that's everywhere from banks to fashion to finding and supporting and donating. And if you can't financially do it, you do that with your time, because understanding and being a part of an organization or a cause gives you some insight into the reality. You know, so much of us live in our own bubble and our own world. And this whole movement has made people have to expand and think outside of their 4 walls. And that is where the more you're learning and you're finding out about other businesses or individuals, It's how do you support them? You know, I feel supported by having a small business. I feel like there was this bump after George Floyd of me being inundated with new followers on social media because it was shared, but not by us at all, by others. And then they all found us and started shopping at Emerson Grace. And we're not even online. We're a standalone boutique, and people either come in or they follow us on social media and we ship. And that is, I think, the power of people wanting to support. And I also think the communities that you're in, they want to ensure that the neighborhoods that they live in will still, after this is all over, will still be thriving. That the stores that they loved to support and the restaurants that they love to go to can still be here. And it's very difficult in this day and age for that to happen for a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses financially do not have the foundation to sustain this sort of long-term catastrophe. Restaurants are a big, restaurants cannot operate at 50% capacity, period, the end. You know, retailers, because of online or because you can open the door, have a better opportunity, but depending on how long you've been in business can only determine, and how financially sound your business has been is what's going to determine if you're going to make it or not. So I feel like the support of, you know, Black and Indigenous and people of color, those types of businesses and peoples and organizations really is where the support is needed, because the more people that do not fall into that category, but that are a part of what we're talking about, they'll get to see what true diversity really means, and they'll have a better understanding because they're in it and they're hearing from the true individuals that actually have to feel it on a daily basis.
Do each of you have one organization you have a chance now to plug that you would say, this is who I believe you should support and fund and spend, you know, make a contribution to? Will you each share one group? I'm putting you on the spot. I know this could be tough. Yep.
NAACP and change.org.
Okay, that's good.
I would have to agree with Kimberly, for sure, NAACP, change.org as well. And I mean, I think those are two really, really important ones. And I think just to sort of backtrack a little bit, I think the importance, and we've all touched on it a little bit, but the importance of mentorship, you know, and, you know, thinking about who mentored me, Fern being one of them, you know, is so important. And how do we pass that on? How do we, you know, pay it forward? So, and I think that is something really important. So whether it's the interns that come through the door or the, you know, the people that we hire, and how do you nurture that talent, you know, within a company and within a culture. But so that's just a backtrack. But anyway, yeah. So I'm all for what Kimberly said.
Okay, any more? Because we have to go to questions, I think, right, Marcia?
Fern, really quick, I just want to say too that NAACP, I will co-sign on that, but also the ACLU, I feel like they do all the things, and that's just such an important organization to support as well. So I just had to throw that in there.
Yep.
Before.
That's important. It helps get all those people who are protesting for all of us who aren't on the streets out of jail and keeping them safe. Yeah, that's very important. That's a very good one, because I wouldn't normally think of that, Marcia. Yeah, Tanya?
We also, we did a donation back to NAACP on our e-commerce sales, but I think that Kids in Need is a really interesting organization that is mainly based in New York, but just focusing on how kids are kind of going through a pretty tough time without access to education in the same way. We have pivoted to make a ton of masks for kids coming up, and thinking of like, what does back to school feel like, and how can we kind of reduce that anxiety? So those are two organizations we've supported.
Right. Off subject, is Sawyer have a Canadian passport now?
He does, yes.
That's good.
I'm really happy about it.
I've got another organization. So people of color that are non-binary or trans are more affected, just in terms of the police brutality when you look at, mental health issues. And there's a trans legal defense fund that I've been supporting as well. So in addition to NAACP, ACLU, and the Trans Legal Defense Fund.
Okay. Barry, anybody from you that you want to throw out there?
I'm going to mention a Nashville-based 501c3 nonprofit organization, the Equity Alliance. It advocates
The what?
the Equity Alliance.
Mm.
They advocate for African Americans and other communities of color to have a fair and just opportunity at realizing the American dream, which makes me think of redlining. So another topic.
Okay. Marcia, do we have questions now? Do we have time for a few?
We do, and Barry, you're so right. We have to represent Nashville for sure. Gideon's Army, too, I think is doing some incredible work here in Nashville, especially in North Nashville. So we will try to send a recap of all these wonderful organizations so you can continue to support them, follow them, and continue the conversation and, more importantly, action. We've had some great questions come in. When you all register at Nashville Fashion Week for these events, we ask that you go ahead and preload some questions so that we can be prepared, and some good ones have come in. So I think this one is especially important. I'm looking at all your facial expressions as I ask this too, do you think the fashion industry sometimes uses culture and race as a trend marketing tool in a harmful way? So who wants to go first on that one?
I'll say yes, they do sometimes in a harmful way, but I don't think harm was ever the intent. I think it comes from a creative base. I think the way people now are blaming everybody for appropriation, people being penalized for dressing as a cowboy or as an Indian as a child. I mean, nobody ever thought that was harmful to Indians. I think we're all having to be, it's a whole new world of political sensitivity of what's correct and what's not. I don't think the fashion industry ever set out to do anything wrong with some of the things that they've been nailed on, but they've responded quickly and taken product off the market at great expense in many cases, and have moved on and made the right moves going forward.
I do think that there are sometimes missteps made with larger brands when you dig deeper and realize there probably weren't people at the table that were part of the decision making. And it just kind of gets to the core problem that there should be more diversity within internal decision making that will probably avoid even a unintentional misappropriation. I think that there needs to be more thought put into advertising choices of why you think something might sell, or speaking to any historical references. It just doesn't feel like that's right anymore.
Feels like everybody has to slow down a little bit. Everything's been so fast, and people have been doing stuff so fast, and collections so fast, and ads so fast, and a new collection. I think the best thing that's happened in this pandemic is the pause that everybody's been able to take. So maybe that'll help.
Reset button. I like how you said pivot. I like how you said shift. All of these words, but just as a reset button. And I want to highlight and plug another very good friend of mine who is a queer woman of color, an incredible artist. In my opinion, one of the best in the world. Chantal Martin is her name. And she had a really interesting feature, a cover of the New York Times recently. And I think fashion, so brands have similarly made missteps, like Microsoft, when they approached Chantal in a very insensitive email saying, while the Black Lives Matter movement is still relevant, we want, just something insane like that. And she clapped back so fast and hard in such an articulate way. I was like, and the New York Times saw it. She actually did my tattoo. She drew on my arm. She's like one of my like actually like a sister to me. So I just, she did my tattoo a while ago, but I just couldn't have been prouder of someone to stand up against Microsoft, against something that was going to be an amazing hit for her. She really stood up, stood her ground, and that I think in fashion, you know, there's similar missteps that have been made, and hopefully learnings that are going to come out of this as well.
Well, I would add to that, hope, like, it really does come down to, like, what Tom said, who's at the table, and that really comes down to hiring and human resources and making sure that from the ground up, you're building a company and a culture that can see multiple points of view. Because for larger companies that have made missteps, it went through many, many people to get to the selling floor. And you're like, how did that happen? How many people saw that? So it really does come from the ground up.
Peter, straight facts on that. There's been so many channels and hurdles that you kind of wonder, how did that happen? Another really great question that came through is, who in your opinion have been key players in helping fashion become more inclusive and diverse? And I think going along with a lot of what you've all said, it's not just designers or not what's consumer facing, who are really making the moves, you know, even behind the scenes. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll just jump in, and he's maybe not behind the scenes, but Edward Enninful, I think, has been a huge, what he's done for both American Vogue and then moving over to British Vogue. I feel like what he's doing there is so dynamic. He's really hit that point of inclusion and fashion. And, you know, he styled my shows back in the day, and just to know that he's such a nice guy too, to me, he's really doing an amazing job.
Well, maybe he will get over to our shores at some point. Also, you know, certainly you have to give Gucci credit for all of the work that they've been doing and all of the people they've been hiring. And now it looks like Beth Ann Hardison has like a nice, really big job there overseeing a lot of these issues. And, you know, we all adore and love Beth Ann, and, you know, she's been fighting the fight for as long as we've known her, and I've known her as long as I've been in the industry. So bravo to them.
And Kimberly and Barry, I'm going to throw this to you because you are our Nashville family, but this is for everyone. But if you guys can start off the conversation, you know, again, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of, you know, studying, a lot of research, doing better. But at the end of the day, this question came in: what does a long-term meaningful solution for inclusion look like to you?
What comes to mind first is the hiring. I think when your team or your company looks like the world we live in, that is the first step, because it makes people feel, when they're approached, that they're comfortable, and the environment, without saying one word, what they see says everything. So that would be my initial thought, being, you know, on the spot answer.
Let's say reaching out to the community that you're in, which Nordstrom is excellent at. Even prior to the store opening, had already reached out to organizations here in town. Career Day at all the universities in the city. People need to know you're here first of all, and then to be open to have them join you.
Yeah, the Nordstrom family has been, I think, on the right side of all the issues.
For sure.
And I'm frozen saying that.
One other person that I wanted to mention I think is doing a great job is Lindsay Peebles Wagner. Like similar, I think, with founding the Black and Fashion Council, and just a lot of her work around kind of who she's hiring and what she's talking about. I'm really excited to see her voice in fashion.
I think the last thing that we kind of want to end on is, you know, it's a very divisive, however you want to pronounce it, depends on if you're south of the Mason-Dixon, I guess, world right now. I know, Peter, you and I have talked about some of the rhetoric out there about the Wuhan flu or the China flu, and we obviously have major issues with immigration and what's at the borders and separation and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. We could go on and on about all of the injustices going on in the world right now and what's been going on. I think, again, these are not new stories. These are things that have been happening for quite some time. So I think the last question is, you know, what are some steps that, or things, whether it's personally or through your brand, that you will continue to do to make sure that you are as open and inclusive as you can be?
Well, I mean, I think we all have to remember that this is a marathon. It's not a race. This is not just a trend, and this is something that has to continue and keep on going. I think the main, I mean, there's so many things that I think people can get overwhelmed about what they can do, but I think making sure you're not silent, because when you see injustice or when you see something wrong, I mean, silence at this point is you're complicit. You have to be able to say something. Similarly, you have to also know when to shut up and to listen, because I think there's a lot of conversations being had, and I think it's so easy to just knee-jerk and react in the way you always have. But it's about listening and learning at the same time. So I think there's sort of those two things, action and listening.
I think to the point of action, it's just following through on what you felt in May and June and making sure that that doesn't just feel like a May and June feeling, and that it needs to be a complete reset of how you approach, you know, hiring practices, but also I think community is so important, and how do we make sure that our team is having active exposure and conversations and supporting the community around us, so that we can, you know, we can be outside of clothing, like we can really have more of an impact than just being a fashion company.
I think for me, I want to just still try to support other designers and brands that are small, that I can help to bring them into, you know, my store that's, I think has a nice aesthetic and is well known, and can help to bring people that maybe have not had the opportunity to have the exposure. And if I can help do that as often as I can, that is my one sort of mission. And it's harder. It's more work, I think, to kind of find, you know, when you pride yourself on having a curated assortment, you have to find the brands that work with the other brands and can also be something new and fresh for your customers. So that's one of the missions. And to what both Peter and Tanya said, this is the new lifestyle. You know, this is your lifestyle. This is a life's work. This is not, you know, this quarter, this last month, last year. This needs to be what
this is forever.
Lives are ingrained in, and how they want to live their life and how they want to show up for themselves and for others in this lifetime.
Yep. This is a forever moment, but I think so much of it also has to start at the children's level, way back in school, you know, from nursery school on up, teaching, because, you know, we see all those beautiful images on Instagram that, you know, children are not taught to hate, you know, they don't, you know, that's, you know, there's so much love at early ages of children embracing each other and all different races and colors and everything. And, you know, they get taught that, and we can't let that happen. We have to unteach all of that bad behavior.
I think that's so true. I think there's a lot of, you know, grieving over, you know, we can't go back to where we were, but that's not a bad thing. Things weren't great. So we just need to move forward and take action and spread the word and continue to have conversations. I want to thank everyone that registered for this event. We had over 200 people show up, show out for the first day of Nashville Fashion Week from all across the world.
But the most important thing everybody can do, though, is vote. Make sure you know everybody is registered and vote. It's never been a more important election in our life. So vote.
Look, Fern said vote. We all need to vote.
Oh.
All right, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. We have a packed week ahead to support independent designers, retailers, and our fashion community. This is so meaningful, and onward and upward. So thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the day, and follow us at NashvilleFashionWeek.com and at NashFashWeek on Instagram. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.